There comes a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when a woman wakes up and realizes something is missing. It's not love, not beauty, not success. It's fire, desire, that subtle hum in her chest that once pulled her toward someone. The ache to be touched, to be seen, to be devoured, gone. And she doesn't know when it happened. It wasn't overnight. It slipped away quietly, beneath schedules, routines, marriages, careers, children, and years spent being everything for everyone. And now, she looks in the mirror and doesn't see someone broken, but someone distant from herself. Doctors will say it's hormones, declining estrogen, aging biology. But what if that's not the truth? What if what disappears after 40 isn't your libido, but your willingness to pretend? What if the body stops craving not because it's failing, but because it's finally tired of faking connection? Carl Jung said, nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment, and especially on its children, than the unlived life of the parent. Maybe what's disappearing isn't desire, but the version of you that used desire to survive a life that never truly fed your soul. In this video, we'll explore why feminine desire fades after 40, and why it's not about hormones, the role of the shadow, repression, and the false self, and how the loss of erotic fire may actually be the soul's quiet revolution. By the end, you'll see that you were never broken. You were just ready for something deeper. So if you've ever asked, why don't I want what I used to want? Stay with me, leave a comment, subscribe to this channel, and let's begin the journey into the truth behind your disappearing desire. Number 1, the vanishing flame, what women feel but can't say. She doesn't talk about it, not to her partner, not to her friends, sometimes not even to herself. But it's there, a quiet disappearance, not of love, not of attraction, but of longing. There was a time when a look could awaken her, when a kiss could dissolve her into feeling, when just being near someone she desired was enough to light something wild in her. Now, that fire feels like smoke. She smiles, but it feels rehearsed. She touches, but feels nothing. She goes through the motions, dutiful, warm, generous, but somewhere deep inside, she's gone, and no one notices, because she still functions. She works, provides, listens, gives, but giving to everyone else has slowly emptied the part of her that once belonged only to herself. She starts to ask in silence, is this just aging? Is it my hormones? Am I broken? No, she is not broken. She is awakening. Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Desire for many women was never just physical. It was a doorway to feeling alive. But when the life she's built no longer reflects her inner truth, desire doesn't die. It retreats, not out of weakness, but as a form of protest. The body begins to whisper, I will not open where I'm not seen. I will not burn just to keep someone else warm. I will not ache for what doesn't feed my spirit. What disappears at 40 isn't desire. It's the mask that tried to turn it into obligation. The woman you were before was built on performance. This woman is built on truth. And when the flame goes out, it doesn't mean the fire is gone. It means it's moving inward, because the soul is preparing something deeper, a desire not for surface pleasure, but for sacred recognition. And this is just the beginning. Number 2, beyond biology, the Jungian reason desire fades. Modern psychology often blames fading desire on hormones. Estrogen, progesterone, dopamine, levels drop, libido drops. Case closed. But what if that explanation is just surface science? What if something much deeper is happening beneath the chemistry? Carl Jung didn't see libido as just sexual energy. To him, libido was life energy itself, not limited to sex, but flowing toward whatever the psyche is truly hungry for. So when a woman's body stops aching for touch, maybe it's not dysfunction, maybe it's redirection. Because after 40, many women find that their lives have been filled with what Jung called false purpose. They've lived through roles, mother, wife, lover, caretaker. They've poured themselves into giving, into maintaining, into surviving. But somewhere along the way, They forgot what it meant to want, not to be wanted, but to want, freely, wildly, soulfully. And when that remembering begins, the libido doesn't vanish. It withdraws from what no longer nourishes the self. Desire fades not because the body is aging, but because the soul is asking, is this what we're still doing it for? Do I want this? Or am I just performing again? Who am I without the roles I was taught to crave approval through? Jung called this moment the beginning of individuation, a psychic rebirth where energy that once went outward now turns inward to reconnect with the true self. It's not menopause, it's metamorphosis. And that's why sex starts to feel like noise. Why certain touches begin to feel hollow. Why attention from others begins to feel intrusive, not flattering. Because a feminine psyche is no longer interested in being consumed. It's yearning to become whole. And that's the part no hormone test can explain. So, the next time you wonder, why don't I feel like I used to? Know this, you are not less. You are more, but your energy is shifting, not toward performance, but toward presence. And that is where true desire lives, not in the body alone, but in the alignment of soul and self. Number 3, persona, performance and the silencing of eros. She was never told this, but she learned it anyway. That being desirable is safer than being authentic. That pleasing others is more praise than feeling fully. That the way to be loved is to become what others expect. So she built what Carl Jung called a persona, a mask, a carefully crafted identity, not to deceive, but to survive, the good partner, the attractive woman, the easy to love, easy to understand version of herself, polished, predictable, pleasing, and for years that persona worked. She was admired, desired, needed, but not known, and slowly the cost began to rise. Because every time she said yes when her body whispered no, every time she smiled to avoid confrontation, every time she had sex to keep peace, a little more of her truth went silent. Carl Jung warned, the persona is a system of behavior that is only partially real. It becomes a substitute for self. And when a woman lives too long inside the mask, eros, the life force of desire, begins to suffocate. Eros isn't just sexual arousal. It's the spark, the impulse to feel, to create, to be alive. But eros cannot live in captivity. It cannot be summoned for duty. It cannot survive in a relationship where performance replaces presence. So she hits 40 and something stops. The body no longer responds. The eyes lose their hunger. She goes numb, not because she's broken, but because the real her has gone underground. This is not dysfunction. It's rebellion. The self is rising beneath the mask, and it's saying, I will not perform my desire anymore. I will not pretend to want what I do not. I will not trade my truth for approval. And until the persona drops, desire will remain quiet, because true desire only flows where truth is safe. Number 4, shadow work at 40. When repression becomes exhaustion, there's a kind of tiredness that no amount of rest can fix. It's not physical, it's soul deep, and it creeps in quietly around 40. That's when she starts to feel it, not just fatigue, but disconnect. Desire fades, not because she's aging, but because she's carrying too much that isn't hers. For decades, she's been the strong one, the giving one, the one who doesn't ask for too much. She's repressed anger to keep peace, buried grief to keep moving, denied her wildness to stay lovable. And now, she's empty. Carl Jung called this the moment the shadow rises. The repressed self, the unlived self, the parts of us we were told were too much, too messy, too inconvenient. Everyone carries a shadow, Jung said, and unless it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. At 40, the weight of the unlived life becomes unbearable. She no longer wants to fake pleasure. She no longer wants to explain her silence. She no longer wants to smile when she feels numb. The woman who once gave endlessly now feels the ache of depletion, and the world calls it low libido, but it's not hormonal. It's existential. She has not lost the will to be intimate. She has lost the will to abandon herself for intimacy. And that is sacred. The shadow is not evil. It's a compass. It points to where truth was denied. It says, "You're not broken. You're buried. Let's unearth the woman beneath the performance." This is the work of midlife, not to fix yourself, but to find yourself beneath everything that's not you. And when that woman begins to rise, she doesn't want more sex. She wants more truth, more fire, more freedom, not to please, but to feel. And that is where the next phase begins. Number 5, from dullness to depth, feminine energy after sexual withdrawal. What looks like dullness is often the beginning of depth. A woman withdraws, not from love, but from the performance of it. She no longer flirts to feel seen. She no longer dresses to be desired. She no longer craves attention like oxygen, because something in her has changed. She's no longer trying to be chosen. She's trying to remember who she is. To the outside world, it looks like her fire has gone out, but inside, a different kind of flame is forming. One that doesn't flicker for validation, but burns in stillness. Carl Jung called this a return to the archetypal feminine, the part of a woman that is untamed, intuitive, anchored not in performance, but in presence. This is not sexual death. It's erotic evolution. The privilege of a lifetime, Jung wrote, is to become who you truly are. And that journey often begins when the world stops making sense, when pleasure feels flat, when intimacy feels performative, when nothing on the outside feels like enough anymore, because it isn't, because what she's really craving is not touch, but truth, not sex, but soul contact, not noise, but resonance. And to reach that, she must first go quiet. In that silence, she doesn't feel sexy, she feels sacred. She doesn't feel wanted, she feels whole. This is not the absence of desire, it's the transformation of it. She no longer wants to be taken. She wants to be met. She no longer wants to be consumed. She wants to be understood. And that shift rewires everything. Because once a woman touches this deeper current of her feminine energy, she will never again trade it for cheap attention, forced intimacy, or half-present love. She will still desire, but from a place of overflow, not emptiness. And that's the truth few will tell you. When feminine desire disappears, it often returns stronger, but only after it's been reborn. So if your desire has gone quiet, if you lie awake, wondering why nothing stirs like it used to, if you feel more numb than needed, you are not broken. You are beginning again. Because what disappears at 40 is not your sensuality, but your willingness to fake it. You spent decades giving, pleasing, adjusting. You played the role. You've dimmed your truth so others wouldn't be uncomfortable. You've made love without feeling met. But now, your soul is done whispering. It's calling you back. Back to the body not as performance, but as presence. Back to touch not as validation, but as resonance. Back to desire not as hunger, but as sacred choice. Carl Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But when you do, when you stop apologizing for who you become, when you stop explaining why your body no longer plays along, something shifts. You start to walk differently, speak differently, want differently. You stop chasing chemistry and start demanding connection. You stop performing pleasure and start requiring presence. And from that place, desire returns, but not the old kind, not the desperate, hungry, people-pleasing ache, but a steady, sacred warmth that doesn't need to be seen to burn. The woman who rises from the silence doesn't need to be chosen. She chooses. So if this message found you, maybe you're not losing your desire. Maybe you're finally setting it free. If this spoke to something inside you, share it with another woman who needs to hear it. Leave a comment. Let me know what you're reclaiming. Like this video, if it helped you come home to yourself. And subscribe for more stories that speak what most are afraid to say. Because your silence isn't the end. It's your return. And desire isn't gone. It's evolving.